pronounce your name correctly for me.
My name is Martynas Petreikis, and I am originally from Lithuania.
So, obvious question, what brought you from Lithuania to work here in Reykjavik?
Well, it was rather very unexpected because I won a Young Painter Prize in Lithuania, which was already almost 10 years ago. And I participated in a project, and a part of the prize for the winner is always a residency abroad and a stipendium. So when I won the prize, because it wasn't announced where a winner will be sent, and then they told it, you're gonna go to Iceland.
They said you're just gonna go somewhere?
Yeah.
And your luck of that year happened to be Iceland.
Yes.
Okay.
So I was like, oh my God, why Iceland, It's a painters project, like for the painters, for emerging young painters. I was like, why Iceland, why not like somewhere Venice, Florence, well, the old masters was born and everything. So, yeah. So I think from that moment, I already understood that I'm gonna have a very unique experience here, and that was my ticket to Iceland, basically.
And that was how many years ago?
So almost 10 years.
Okay. Side note, I didn't even know you were an artist in and of yourself. So you won this painting award. Obviously, you probably went to some schooling in Lithuania. Yeah. But we'll get back to that too. But so now that you're living in another country, are you continuing to be a practicing artist?
Actually, not in the past years, especially when the COVID hit everybody. Sure. And the amounts of work has increased, and especially with the residency, of course, like all of us, we had to face it. So I had to put my personal artistic practice on the side.
It happens a lot throughout a career.
Absolutely.
Like, there are times I've never said this on the podcast before. I've been kind of depressed for the past year or so, COVID related, so on, trickle down. And I have not been able to work. I have ideas and I'm planning to get back to work, but there are times in our careers where it's like, you just can't do it. You can't juggle those things you have to do for money and with the ability to have that artistic expression.
Absolutely. And I always like that to focus myself 100% in my work, in my practice, and if there is anything else bothering you on the side, or if there is more tension at work, so you get home after working hours, you still keep on thinking about the work instead of starting to think about your own artistic practice. But then as well, there were very interesting turnouts when I started to work with the residency program. Reading all the applications, and artists very often asking me as well, like, oh, Martynas, do you still keeping up, or what are you doing, or why did you stop, I said, well, reading through the year around 600 to 700 applications, and then you start to question your own practice, and you start to think, is it my own mind, is it my own ideas, or it is something what I already read?
I totally agree. I do portfolio reviews online for Lens Culture, the lensculture.com. They do competitions, and they get free portfolio reviews. And I do this, and every now and then I'm working in the studio and I'm like, fuck, that's just like that work that I reviewed a couple weeks ago. Yeah. And I'm like, damn it, I can't let myself take on their ideas.
Absolutely.
It's hard. To come up with coming up with a new idea, A, that's hard. But B, doing it when your job is to read other people's ideas, it makes it very difficult to separate that sometimes.
Yes.
And a lot of people don't understand that. Anybody who doesn't basically have that position doesn't understand that. I'm a teacher, so I get inspiration from my students, and then I'm like, oh shit, did I steal something from my students?
Exactly. Is it my students' work? That's what you would think in university. Was did you saw our teachers last works? They look like yours, kind of a similar, But these things, of course, happening probably naturally. You don't think about it. But your probably brains just has absorbed so much of the data in it that it starts to just reflect it, and you start just to think that it's a kind of your own thoughts. And yes, and reading through so many applications as well, that you see that there are so many artists who going totally same mindsets, totally same ideas, concepts, even in a source of the techniques or yes.
I always find it depressing when I read something that, like, basically they took an idea that I had and they did it so much better than I ever would have done.
That could be true as well. It's just like
it's like, that's so depressing.
Exactly. It's like disappointing. You're just like, oh my God.
Yeah. Well, but let's take a step back. So, like, we've sort of gotten into it a bit too much. So you are the project manager for the residencies. Give us a little sort of background on sort of what that position exactly is.
So 4 years ago, I took over SEAM residency in Reykjavik, and my position is called a SEAM residency project manager.
So this residency SEAM, but so just to give a sort of a structural understanding, SEAM is a more or less what I understand. Keep in mind, I'm working off of like just what other people have said to me, so I might be wrong or what I've read online. So it seems to be sort of what they're calling like a union as an organization.
We are Visual Artists Association. It's not like a union.
Okay.
Because unions a bit work in a different source of, but we are a Iceland's Visual Artists Association, and that's a difficult word.
I was going to say so many little subtle, because
Exactly.
there's association, there's societies, then there's potentially even a union, which I don't think there are any here though.
Unions? Oh, there are a lot of unions. There are a lot of labor unions.
Are there guilds as well too? Just
yes.
Okay.
And so SEAM residency is established by SEAM, Visual Artists Association, and it is a very big part of the all activities that SEAM takes over.
All right, so the residency, I think you have multiple residency locations that you oversee. So like, where are they? Because like I would imagine they're not in Reykjavik proper.
We actually, I would say, what is unique about our residency that applicants, they can choose in between two locations. One of them is in Reykjavik downtown, which is, we call it Seljavegur. It's in Seljavegur Street, and the other one is a bit on the side of the Reykjavik. It takes like 45 minutes with the city bus.
Okay.
One direction, and it is a corpusstadr. It's an old farm. So two different locations, very different characters of the residency. One is, it is not kind of you would not say that it's a remote, but it is on the side, so it's automatically on the side of the city. So it is automatically or naturally more quiet, more peaceful, much more closer to the nature feeling. And in downtown, of course, well, it's basically, we are the only one residency in Reykjavik city for the visual artists, if you would state this way. And it's more crowded, more busy, because it's in the city. So two different types, two different experiences, and artists definitely can choose what's the best for them.
Now, I know almost nothing about these exact residencies. Now, I know you have an association with Scotsfell, which I've spoken to people associated with that. What's your relationship with them?
With Skaftafell, well, we don't have a direct connection with the residencies.
Okay.
But of course, because we are a SEAM Visual Artists Association, so association is connected or have a friendship connections with the Skaftafell. And with many other artists or run spaces, or with the, for example, in Akureyri as well with Art Center. So.
Okay, so we won't talk about them then. That's fine. So So these residencies that you offer now, so like in my romantic mind, which is of course stupid, so bear with me, is that a residency is a place where there's some resources, some opportunities, et cetera, et cetera. So like, what could a person who's applying to a residency here sort of expect? Are there tools, workshops, studios, or is it space, time? Like what are the sort of the benefits of these particular residency opportunities?
So we primarily offer a time and a place or space for the international artists. And in each residency apartment, we have planned a room studios, as we call it, or slash studio, where artists live in the same room and work. And of course,
wait, multiple artists in the same room?
No, I mean we have, for example. Okay, let me clear it out.
I'm thinking I'm
talking about how it's designed, the room. To clear it out even more, going backwards. So in Selvegur, in downtown residency apartment, we have 11 room studios. In Korpustadir, which is a farm, we have 7.
Okay.
Right. And in each apartment, we offering a different options. So, for example, if there is a visual artist, painter applying, and he definitely knows that he wants to work with paintings, not only, let's say, sketches or just doing researches, just, collecting information and data. So then we have a one room that is connected together with separated studio. And we have one room in Selvegur as well that it is for a couples artists, like let's say starting family, or could be as well two duo artists, like co-artists that collaborates and they want to share the same space.
Side note on that, you brought up families. What about children? Are they sort of allowed, encouraged?
That is a very big issue, I would say, in Iceland. And it's not only in Iceland, actually. There are so little residencies for the families and for the artist families.
Yes.
And I know there are one in Finland, at least that's what I heard. Probably maybe there are something in Sweden and in Norway.
I know of one in France as well.
So that's what you see. You have very well to think about it, and then you just like maybe you will come up with some location, with some place. I know that I think in Gulkistan, other residency in Iceland, they used to sometimes as well facilitate artists with the children of the. But unfortunately, we are not capable of it, and there's huge matters of the issues and the safety regulations from the ministry, and of course, because the residency apartments are structured that there is a shared kitchen and shared common places. So, thinking in terms of the safety for the children as well. And
artist studios,
exactly,
not the safest places
absolutely,
for kids.
So there are so many steps, and so unfortunately we cannot offer a residency for families with the children.
It's fine. Now, how long are these residencies as a general whole? I'm sure they vary a little bit.
You asking how long artists can apply it for the residency program, or
how long do they last? So like 1 month, 3
so,
months, 6 months?
We allow artists to, the shortest is for 1 month stay, and the longest is for 3 months. And artists, because we have around 30% of artists who always return to our residency to continue with the projects. And so artists can reapply it and be accepted for 3 times, and then they can stay in a waiting list if they wish to come back for a 4th or 5th time. We even have such artists. And then if no one else is participating in a room, we have a better project, and then of course they can even participate in the residence program for more times.
I've often wondered, because keep in mind, so I'm coming to this from the perspective of a practicing artist, and I really want to know a lot about how decisions are made, choices are made. So when applying, would we as the person applying say, I want 1 month, or is it where you all decide we believe this project needs 3 months?
So we have open call twice per year because we are not planning or predicting residency for not longer than half a year ahead. And the application form is on our website, which is very easy to fill it up. We actually have made it less complicated for the artists because very often artists found it very difficult.
Love that. Appreciate that.
All those to go through all those steps. So it's actually a pretty easy form. Thanks for our web designer as well. and so in the application form, artists can choose the month when they want to participate in a residency program. They have free proposals, pre-selections, like the primarily first as a first wish, as a second wish, and as a third wish. And then artists as well, they choose a location where they want to stay, either in downtown Strelbegur or in Korpusstaðir. And for how long? For 1 month or for 3 months?
Okay, so the artist sort of chooses what
Absolutely.
They're looking for.
Yes.
And how is this? Who is this funded for by? So like, so if an artist was accepted, what are they expected to pay for versus what is offered through some funding models?
So we are non-profit as anyone else in Iceland. There are no 100% granted residency through the year. If the residency do not apply for sort of grants, like for example support for the Nordic residencies. And luckily we succeeded for this year. So next year in January we're planning to release an open call pretty soon for 7 artists or curators. So that's going to be a chance to participate in fully granted residency.
Nice.
But that's only going to be 7 artists,
right,
out of almost 200 that we receive per year. Yeah, that's a big number.
Yeah, that's one of the. It's funny. That's one of the things that, like, again, me as an outsider, like, look, I'm always like looking at residencies and thinking, but how many other people are applying? Like, what are my actual percentage chances? So, like, Absolutely. So you're saying 7 out of 200. So that's a 3.5% chance of receiving the fully funded version of the grant.
Yes,
it's pretty low.
It is. But
it's pretty competitive.
Absolutely. But that is probably some other discussions. It's how much interest showing the Ministry of the Culture in Iceland, etc., etc. So this is, I would say, a bit on a side discussion, and the political issues as well in it.
I was going to say that's one of my pet peeves about when it comes to some great opportunity like a residency that is seemingly, and keep in mind I may have this wrong, for somewhat funded by like the Ministry of Culture kind of thing here, that politics gets involved. I really hate that politics gets involved in the arts. Like, I don't think it should be, period.
Absolutely.
But yet it is.
And it affects a lot, actually, everyone's.
I used to run a nonprofit. I used to run a public sculpture program. So like I dealt with politics and all this kind of stuff. And like 1 year I went to try and get funding and it happened to be an election year.
And then everything collapsed probably. And you had almost strokes thinking who is going to be elected, will be keep on receiving the same support, or is going to get worse or better. Yes, absolutely.
Correct. Yes. It's very unfortunate that I feel that those things are connected, in my opinion. I mean, other things in the arts aren't as connected as that with politics. And I find it very unfortunate. Like, I mean, I grew up in Washington, D.C., the hub of American politics. I purposely went into the arts to get away from politics, and then only to find out decades later that politics is actually still involved in it. And it's
everywhere. It's everywhere. Whenever you're going to turn, wherever you're going to... yes, they are always there.
Oh, it's so sad. But anyway.
Yes, so getting back to the residency fees.
Yes.
So we have a fees. And if, as I mentioned, we are non-profit. And because we don't own none of the houses. So,
okay, wait, nuanced thing. You keep using the term non-profit. Is it NGO or non-profit?
NGO.
Okay. Because in America, it seems to be the word nonprofit. Europe seems to use the word NGO. I don't know if there's a difference.
Well, it's just probably that's kind of the same turnout or meaning, that we are not trying to earn out of this. We are not making business out of it.
Well, but you have to pay yourselves.
Well, that's what we mean, that all the costs that we calculated or put together for the residency apartments and to run the residency program, then later we just dividing into the rooms or per artist participating per month for the residency. So that where it comes the fee. And of course, and the same fee is included, and the Wi-Fi in the house, and the electricity and the heating,
trash, water,
exactly. All the basic living cost is already covered in the same fee. So the artists, when they are arriving for 1 or for 3 months, they at least don't have to think that they will need to spend additional monies for it.
Well, I mean, while Iceland is stunning, because I've taken some time and gone out around the island,
Yes.
It's a beautiful place.
Absolutely.
It for most people in the world, so because I'm thinking Americas, Canada, even far southern Europe and places like this, it's reasonably difficult to get here. I mean, is that something that you run into where people are like, I would love to come to this, but it's kind of expensive for the flights and all this? I mean,
so I would say that what all the residencies facing here in Iceland, and the artists who want to participate in residency program, that the costs actually are very high. And it's not like when you're in the middle of the Europe, that you can use maybe a train and maybe flights are more cheaper. They are less affected for the high touristic seasons, lower touristic seasons. But here, the only way to get is just by taking a plane. Well, we have sometimes an artist that they just take a ferry, let's say from Denmark, and they come in with their own car, but that's very rarely. It's basically 1-2 artists per year or something. And that increased the cost for artists incredibly, especially summer seasons, or as well thinking of the year, what is the economical effect in general. Or for example, we, as I'm saying, when I started to work, I got to face this gradual collapse. I think it was 2018 or 19 when the WoW Air, the airline, they bankrupt.
Oh yes,
the cheap, the low fare airlines, and a lot of artists, of course, used it.
I used the new version of it to come here.
All right, today.
Play
So it's kind of reborn, but
yeah.
So already then we received a numerous amounts of the cancellations, because, for example, some other companies, they benefit from it. They over the night they almost increased flight tickets double or etc. etc. So those difficulties definitely artists has to face it, and they have to apply for the funds from the local government, look for the support for it, because neither we have as well additional grants that we could offer for the international artists to come and participate in our residency. So applying artists, they have to look and seek their own funding.
It's fair. But does the residency run all year round? Because it gets quite cold and dark.
Well, we are in Reykjavik, so connections between the airport and in general in the city is everything is well and great. Always plenty of tourists, no matter which season of the year. So we run residency program through the year. We used to a couple of years ago, but probably that is what we're facing a consequence of the global warming. We used to have a Corpus Stadir closed for 3 winter months, but because we see less snow through past years, so we already 2 years have and the Corpus Stadir running fully through the year.
Wow, that dramatically different worth of global warming can be seen here.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah. We can see this effect.
because I don't live here and I don't see like year to year kind of things like global warming kind of things, but like up here in Scandinavia, I would imagine like these kinds of global warming things look like they're happening seemingly very fast.
And especially in Reykjavik, like, a couple of years, like in November, which actually should be already kind of snow showing up, or even though if it snows, it's very little, it melts very fast. So last winter, we just start to seeing some snow coming around February, March,
Wow, that's late. That's late for anywhere.
Yes, and then with the storms, a little bit, would come up, and even those storms do not bring as much snow as it used to.
Interesting. So, okay, back to the residency itself. So the residency is open to all kinds of creative people.
Absolutely.
So not just visual artists.
Yes.
So what kind of people are, well, it's not like, I guess, like what kind of people apply, but like what kind of people are often accepted?
Because, well, what started with the residency, which is actually 20 years, we're running the residency program, and we are one of the oldest residency programs in Iceland. It started only from the visual artists, but
as it should.
As it should. No, it's not.
I'm totally kidding.
And the reason was because we had only 2 rooms here in our guest house. That's actually where residency started. So we had only 2 rooms to offer for the artists. But already in 2002, through the year, we would receive almost 100 requests for the residency program. So that's when we started to see that we have to make residency bigger. We have to open more rooms. And then when we received from a government Selevegur, the house, and then we moved the residence apartment there. And if I remember correctly, I think we started right away from 2004 with it was 8 or 9 rooms, studios. And today, having 2 apartments and have a lot of place to offer for the artists. And as well, we see that visual artists today, they're not as visual as they used to be, right? Thinking that each artist today is interested in the music and looking for sources to get or increase their knowledge in a sound and involve the sound performances, right? And that's why today every month we have very different background artists participating in residency program. We have writers, we have the curators, we have even personnel who works in art institutions or in galleries, and they coming here to get to know a local galleries or meet curators or build up a friendships. And as well, we have same visual artists who practicing more. So we have this very big diversity every month, and the artists benefiting out of it.
Wait, so like I could just come here and just say like, you know what, I want to come to this residency just so I can just basically meet people in the community?
If your project or the reasons are well explained, and if you will see that is valuable for you and is very important, of course we can offer for you to participate in a residency.
All right, because I mean that's one of my big questions is like, how are the decisions made on sort of what makes a project up a quote like quality? I'm air quoting, like a quality project that you would think is worthy of participating, because I know it's reasonably subjective, but I'm sure there are a certain set of criteria. I mean, what I'm looking for is like, not necessarily even like, because you could say like, oh, this will get you the residency, but you kind of can't say that because it won't work. But like, maybe what are some like bad ideas that people have come up with that it's like, okay, don't even try applying with this because we're not going to accept that.
It's like, this process is actually so complicated, and I think anyone who runs the residency always will tell you, just like whenever you start to talk about the selection processes, it's always like gives you a great headache actually. And not only to read throughout all those project proposals, but as well in terms of a diversity of the ideas and the concepts that art is proposing. We do not particularly like divide artists on the titles or directions where they're going. You know, we are not saying like, oh no, we're gonna accept artists who proposing LGBTQ rights, for example, or you know, only those who are in sustainability. You know, it comes a very variety of what artists in general, the purpose to come to Iceland first. Why does he really needs to come to Iceland, right? Why he wants to stay in our residency?
Which is a great question that a lot of people have difficulty with, because
exactly, to answer it, like why you should come there so that I could get into the residency, right?
Right. Well, I mean, because like if I've never been here, it would be really hard for me to write a thing saying like I need to be in Iceland because of XYZ. Now, having been here, I feel like oddly enough, I probably could write a better application because
Absolutely.
I have a little bit of better sense of like the things that are important and things like this.
What I need.
Yeah. So like, I mean, it feels like almost like if I wanted to apply for the residency, that I almost should come and visit first and have a little bit of a sense of it, like the city, the community, the culture, whatever, before writing an application. Because I feel like if I had tried to write an application before coming here, it would have been horrible.
No, I think you always have to try it.
Yeah, but I've learned so much more about the culture having spent time here.
But you don't. Maybe you not in particular have to come here. Maybe it could be one of the reasons. And a lot of artists are actually highlighting this, that they really want to get to know the place, right? They want to go into the archives, go into the Viking letters and looking into this pre-history structure that they want to reflect into it afterwards, you know, which is actually very important for us. And one of the aims is to having all those residencies in Iceland is that later the word about the Iceland and the local culture would be spread wisely around the world, only by looking and analyzing the local language, culture, traditions as well.
Well, you brought up the idea of like researching stuff like this. Is this something that you will help to facilitate? So like if an applicant comes in and says, I want to come up and do research on, I'm going to be horribly stereotypical and just say like Viking ruins or something like this. I know that's a horrible cliche, but do you help to facilitate like the access to some of these archives and things like this, or is this still something that falls back on the applicant to get access to?
We send all the data information before the artists arrive, or just as soon as they get accepted. We send all the data information, links, contacts to the libraries, to the museums, and then artists can start looking into it. And of course we help for the artists if they need to, in particular, to meet some kind of a person that we could advise for, that would probably give the most answers for the artist, or support, or just to make these connections, you know, to connect the emails, etc. Of course we are trying to help for artists to find the best and the fastest sources that are needed for the art project research.
Yeah, because while it sounds like, 1 month, 3 months, lots of time, that's not a lot of time.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. The months fly, you know, for me, working in a residence, as I'm saying, you know, 1 month is like 1 week.
Absolutely.
And especially, you know, you're in a new place, and if you are for the first time in Iceland, you really need to get through this weather thing, what is basically all our lives running always about the weather, you know, and just you know, being in a new place, it's totally different dense of the air, and everything affects you. You know, if you get in the middle of the summer, this bright nights and everything, if you're coming in the winter, darkness, etc. So only to get used to the place, to feel the place, because when I arrived myself in a residency, luckily I was granted for 2-month residency. So first month I was just getting into it. I was visiting all the museums, galleries, trying to make new connections, new collaborations, and basically traveling around just to try to absorb the place, to understand the place. And only on the second month I opened up and I started to produce some art.
speaking of producing art, I feel like, and maybe I just haven't been looking well enough or been in the right areas, there's not a lot of art supply stores here either.
Nothing in Reykjavik downtown, basically.
And I've only really been in Reykjavik downtown.
So. And we used to have it a couple of years ago, but of course the influence of the tourism and the high rents, so they could not afford to stay no longer in a downtown area. But there are several ones, and very specific ones. For example, like for the ceramic shops, etc. But then you need just to take either bus or get a cab if you want to buy a lot of things.
Well, I mean, what about like ordering supplies and things like that? Do you like order from like Utrecht over in Amsterdam or any of these kinds of places?
I usually never recommend for the artists, and because very often the end is that you have to pay additional tax on it, unless artists can't get the materials. Like pretty difficult material to get in Iceland is this liquid rubber that it was a wave that everyone was using it for sculpturing, etc. But for example, in Iceland, it's basically impossible to get such a material. So you definitely then have to ship it. Or I always advertise for the artists proposing to bring with themselves. It's, I think, even cheaper, and you will be 100% sure that you have your materials right from the first day arrival in the residency, just to take with you as an additional luggage when boarding with the plane. And even sending, sometimes we had a situation, artists 1 week before arriving to the residency, he sends a huge package, and then the package arrives only last week at the end of the residency.
Gets stuck in customs
because
or whatever.
Stuck in customs takes long, send somewhere, get lost, etc. So it's always better just to have it with you before arrival already.
Yeah, I mean, I was living in the Middle East and I had an exhibition in New York City. And I was like, I'll just ship they were prints, they're photographic prints. So I was like, I'll just ship them. I shipped them. They got stuck in customs in California. And I don't even know why it went to California. I was shipping it to New York City. So I ended up just getting on a plane with the prints as my carry-on. And there you go, the exhibition's done. But what a pain in the ass that was. And to this day, I never paid the customs for them. As far as I know, they destroyed them. I hope they did anyways.
And it's difficult gets later to declare it as well. If there is some technical equipment, for example, if you send it here, then they're reviewing, asking all the receipts if it's really yours, or if you're buying a new one, so it is something being and living in Iceland, where everything as well gets shipped and imported, so there are some challenges.
What about like once people produce artwork here, getting it home?
That is something what I always as well have to redirect artists, because sometimes they applying and which is great, and some of them actually succeed with it. For example, like if it is a canvas and etc. But maybe then they have to shrink the size, for example. So let's say if it's canvas, they can maybe roll it up and take it with themselves on the way in a plane. But for example, shipping again out pieces, especially if there is a sculpture or ceramics, it's incredibly expensive, and you never know what you're gonna get at the end. Because if it's gonna ship, etc., things might break and such difficulties.
Indeed.
As well.
All right, back to the decision-making process.
Yes.
You kept mentioning we make these decisions. Who are the people? Like, so when somebody submits an application, who oversees the decision-making process?
So it's always starts with me. I'm overlooking all the applications that they would be full applications. If it's anything missing or there are some misunderstandings, or with the websites, etc. So I am the first one to review all the applications, and then we have a panel, and we sit with our panel together, and we overlooking the applicants.
Well, and how? Okay, so like, and a lot of residency applications say the panel, blah blah blah. How is the panel just sort of constructed or decided upon? Is it a same panel every year? Is it differing panels each process? Are they practitioners? Are they theoreticians? Or like, so like, what kind of sort of scope of like choices do you all make to create the panels, and do they change?
Some part of the panel is always the same. Committee members is our directors, and as well from a SEAM board member, and we always including a neutral person in it. So it could be either local artists, or sometimes it happened that even our alumni who moved to Reykjavik, for example, after staying in a residency, it's happened as well that once we asked to participate in a selection committee.
All right, then I'm going to get down to the nitty gritty of it, like the real sort of tangible things. It's like, because I'm I don't know, maybe a bit of an anxious person, nervous person, especially when it comes to applications, because you never know what the other side is actually looking for. And so you sort of, as an applicant, you just do your best, but you might miss the mark completely. But so like in the hierarchy, I'm assuming, haven't looked at the particular application, but I'm assuming there's basically like a who, what, where, when, why. So like, why do I want to be there? You know, and then I'm sure images have to be submitted, artist statement, CV, you know, any form of bio, all this kind of stuff. I'm always fascinated, like, what's the most important thing? Like, what's the first thing that, like, if it's done poorly, you almost don't even look at the rest?
For my personal opinion, when I'm doing my selection part of it, of course, first I just read the project proposal.
Okay.
How innovative it is, the reasons, once again, why the artists want to participate in a residency, and then you just, of course, look in the quality of the artist background and artist practice as well, what artists have done and what kind of art he produced already. So very often you're going backwards, looking into the exhibitions that artists have presented. Of course, you're checking and the website, you're checking and the Instagram, or if artists sending, yes, Instagram plays a very big role.
Does it?
And I will tell one secret that very often artists forget that there is a tag on Instagram. So that's what you're checking as well, not only Instagram wall, but you check who tagged the artist, and then you can as well get some really great information data about it.
Wow, I'm
so guys
screwed.
who are applying, so you got to check it out, because
nobody tags me.
Well, then maybe you're kind of lucky, or maybe unlucky, because then you see maybe there is a questionable some parts of the CV or etc.
Yeah, no, my whole life is questionable. It's fine, but
but I mean, there are so many sources that we actually we do check, and you have to look into it, right?
Sure.
In terms, you have to look into, yes, in the background of the artist, a previous projects or previous residencies that artist was participating in it, and sometimes happens as well that if there is a high competition for the, let's say, for same room. For example, as this July we had a 3 artists participating in the same room. So maybe sometimes you even need to have a face call to make a final decision, because and the project proposals were strong, and the artist as a background and as an education is high with the PhD artists or researchers, and then it gets some tension, so you have to spend more time to make a final decision.
Okay, yeah. So let's take that back a step, because so you have the 2 separate locations.
Yes.
When I've had discussions with other residency programs, there's the nature of, like, some residency programs are individual. So it's like a creative person. So I'm not going to say necessarily it's an artist. So it could be author, it could be musician, whatever. Creative person comes, and it's really just about them having time, space, and whatever, blah. Then there are other residency programs that are very much about creating a peer group, meeting other people, working collaboratively, sort of sharing of ideas and this kind of thing. Where does this fall? Where your program fall on that sort of spectrum?
I would say we're trying to find this golden middle in between, because the residency is self-directed. Right. So we are not creating each artist. We don't have a thematical residencies. as well. So each applicant is selected particularly by only his own concept and the reasons why he wants to participate in residency program. But as well, the aim is to have a bigger amount or a greater number of the participants in a residency program during the month. So bring this diversity in residency so that the artists already inside with a residency, they could have a better networking to build it up, to share the experiences, right? And yes, I think that's the most successful part of being in residency. First, meeting the other artists, and then getting into the local circles, looking for the local networks and the connections as well.
Yeah, because I mean, those two different, like, they're extreme versions of residencies, but like they serve different purposes in an artist's career. You know, like, so like sometimes like you have a museum exhibition or an upcoming gallery exhibition, and you need the alone time basically just to finish production kind of thing. And sometimes you really want to grow like your peer group, your whatever, your connections to other curators or galleries or whatever. And so like they serve a different purpose. So like it's not like one's better than the other, but you know, when somebody's choosing to apply, it's nice to know sort of what the residency has to offer, basically. Because not every residency is clear of what they have to offer.
In terms of offering, well, we offering this space for artists as well to produce their art piece or amount of artwork if they're describing that they will be producing it, right, making 10 paintings and they then think that they really need to make these 10 paintings, you know. But whenever we have first introduction meeting, I'm always notifying artists. I'm saying that things can change, especially if you are for first time in a residency, right? You start maybe, oh my God, it's totally different, or I already saw something that inspired me and I don't want to do this anymore. I want to change my directions. Of course, go for it. You know, it is a self-directed residency at the end, and you want to make the artist feel great. You want to see a great results, and only great results will come up from this high interest or attraction that artist feels when he gets here. So very often actually artists, they change their direction while they're staying in residency, you know, or it happens as well. I'm saying like, well, if it's really something that you want to just go and explore the land at the end, you know, like this incredible landscapes, you know, that artists get inspired of it, you know. And if there is really little time left for you to spend in the studios, you know, don't get better about it, you know. Just rather spend more time for the research, collecting the data for yourself, for your future projects, and whenever you're going to be back home to your own studio, working place, and then you can explode it with all the information and data that you were capable to collect throughout the month. So there is always an option for changes, and I think artist himself knows the best which direction or to turn.
Well, I mean, you bring up a good point, which is something that I've run into with applications and also talking with other residencies too, is like, is there any form of a desired outcome or a result that you all request when the application is written? Because like I've run into other residencies that they say at the end of the residency they expect an exhibition or a workshop with the local community or some sort of engagement, you know, as the culmination of the time. Is that part of this?
So what we proposing in our residency program that we curate throughout the month, we're proposing for artists to participate in artist talk, and at the end of the month we have open studios. Both events, they are publicly open, and artists can choose if they want to participate or not. There are no force for it, right? And but of course everybody participates and everyone wants to be a part of it. But we don't have this that you have to, if you write it in your project once again, like that there will be 6 paintings that I have to make it, and we're gonna request you to present those 6 paintings, And of course, we don't ask artists to leave any art pieces or something instead of being or participating in a residency.
Yeah, that's something I've run into as well. So like,
yes, well, it
leaving
depends
something
on your
for the
residency.
archive.
Maybe what I know from myself, and I was doing research about residencies and how they are run in other places, often those residencies who are fully granted, they might require some piece of art to be left behind when the artist departs.
One of the residencies I did, their sort of stipulation was basically they paid for everything, and all I had to do was leave them one piece of art, which I was quite fine with. I think that's a fair deal.
I think as well for some artists it might bring some pressure or stress in it. So that's why as well we're seeing that our events are optional if artists either don't feel comfortable, or once again he had to change his direction and he did not produce this film, because he was basically just shooting raw all the time and using it, and later decided that he's going to be editing at the end of the after the residency when he returns home, So that released the pressure from the artist, and I think the outcomes are always much better.
Yeah, it's actually funny now that you mention that. Like at the work that I gave back to that residency, I did not actually physically produce at the residency. I created the research, we'll call it, or the basis of it, went home, made a piece, and then donated it back in retrospect, because they didn't have any sort of resources for what I needed. I was a photographer, and they didn't have a dark room or printer or whatever at this time. So I took pictures while I was there, then I left, printed them, and then turned around and donated it back. So I liked it. I have no regrets about it. As a matter of fact, I'm a little sad that they have that piece. It's one I actually really quite like that piece. But anyways.
Well, but maybe instead of in exchange you had a great residency program, great time, and you maybe benefit from the connections and networks that you were able to build it up.
I did, and not only that, but the technique that I ended up using there ended up being something I did for the next 5-7 years. So the evolution that sort of was encouraged through conversations and things like that while there sort of led me down a path that I did not foresee if I had not gone to that residency. Yeah. So no, great benefits. But
absolutely.
But that also sort of lends to the thing that I'm often wondering about, which is residencies. So when it comes to the residencies, what are the age ranges? Because I would imagine in young artists, it has a certain amount of benefit. And we'll call it mid-career artists has a different benefit to come to a residency. And then, of course, later career artists, again, different purposes, different outcomes and things like this. So when it comes to your residency in particular, what are the general sort of broad stroke age ranges for it? Do you have a lot of younger participants, a lot of older, a lot of mid-career? What's the range?
It's a very good question. And it has a lot of different points. First of all, even though we ask, for example, in our application form to note an age, which is not obligated. Once again, the artists can skip this information, but we asking this only later for our statistics for the data.
Right, for grants.
Yes, that we have to later present it for our ministries.
Mm-hmm.
And I never look into the age of the artist when you start to read the art project. Or
it is so obvious how old an artist is when you look at their CV, because it tells when they went to school, though.
That's true. You can see through the dates. But when I'm opening the application first, I going into the project proposal. And because for me, that's the most important part. There could be very young artist who has, let's say, only BA, because by the way, we accept artists only who graduated BA or are in the final years of the BA. So let's say only professional artists. We do though have an exemptions as well for those who are self-taught, but they should present, or you can see it from the CV that they're presenting, that they have been already recognized and etc. etc. Yes, so getting backwards to the age, and well, there are different aspects as well. Thinking of that it is a residency fee, so that means that the artist should have a budget to participate in a residency program. And very often those artists who just graduated, they have very low savings. They didn't have, they probably, additional 30, 40 years to live through the life and have a great budget and maybe bank accounts, etc., or have some businesses build up in between.
You are being so polite about this, but yeah, young artists are generally poor.
But that's, yeah. So basically, they're the poorest, let's say, right?
They are. Yeah, and I mean, it's not cheap to do this. I mean, to be able to take a month to 3 months off from basically your job.
And from your job, and then you have to have those all additional, the budget for it, and you have to have this secured budget as well in case something happens, which very often happens in Iceland,
Or if you're a young artist, I would imagine as a young artist, it would be also difficult to get a grant because
Absolutely.
you don't have the background
Yes.
and the reputation and stuff.
Yes.
So like, I mean,
it's very more challenging
yeah.
But although we have a great number of the young artists participating in residency program and those who receive actually a lot of grants, so I think it depends on each country and institutions for what they giving priorities to. Either they want to support a emerging artists or they are more into established artists. But I think today every institution and they pay more attention to support the young artists who have very low financial budgets.
I'll tell you, Europe, you all, and I'm including Scandinavia with this, but like you all are amazing with that kind of support.
Yes.
In America, like I lived in a city in North Carolina where like the big grant that everybody fought for, $500.
Wow.
That's it. And it had to be for purchasing of a product, so like you needed to buy a camera or canvas or whatever. Like they wouldn't let you pay your own salary. They wouldn't let you do travel. Like it just didn't, they wouldn't do it. So like in Europe, you all are amazing with your financial supports. And I wish I had come earlier. Quite honestly. Like, yes. I'm so sad that it took me until I was like 45 years old to come to Europe
Yes.
and figure this stuff out, because like
Exactly.
you all are so good with that. And I'm a little depressed that nobody told me about it at a younger age. Had I known how supportive Europe really is for all of these programs, and not just like within individual countries, but like as a community,
Yes.
like traveling
Absolutely.
between countries
Yes.
and all this kind of stuff. Like, God, I wish I'd known about that like 30 years ago.
That helps for artists incredibly.
It really does. And America does not have that. So like,
Well, then you have somewhere where to grow.
oh, they have lots
Still
of
it is
growth
there.
to do there. Yeah, they are
Yeah.
not supportive of the arts at all in comparison.
And if get back to the age during the selection processes, so once again, it doesn't play the role how are you very young or you are very experienced artist through the years, and that's why you can see a very big age difference each month, which is I think is very beneficial as well. That and maybe artists who got stuck on his art practice, through the many years, right? Running kind of same kind of conceptions, directions, and spending 1 month or 2 months sharing this space and having discussions and talks all the time with some young artists who maybe are more free on experiencing and getting to know just a basis or beginning of in their career, So it is very beneficial both sides. And from the young emerging artists to get receive a great advices from someone who is very experienced, and from the other side, like flipping in it. So every month, actually, we have very different age rates in the residency.
Well, you also talked about like the text, the proposal thing. Like there was a previous guest on the podcast, Amanda Marchand, who had this amazing sort of way to explain how to write these applications, which like to this day it still sort of racks in the back of my mind, which is when you write an application like this, basically you need to write it in a way that explains why me, why now, and why here.
That's the main questions that I would say it should be answered in a project proposal.
I know, but I didn't even hear about that until I was like 47 years old. So
right.
I'm like, but what? I mean, but like that's such a clear way to describe what you should be writing when you write that, because like, like I grew up in America, we were told to like be a cheerleader, use Latin phrases, like to, put ourselves into the artistic canon. Like there are all kinds of bullshit things that are not true anymore. Like that's not what should be done. And when it comes to a residency in particular, the need for me as an applicant to sort of express why me, why am I, why do I need to be there, why now, because like, I could specifically say I want to come in the summer, I want to come in the winter, like why that time, and like why this time in my career is so important for me to be there.
Yes.
Like these are things that like it never dawned on me, like, and maybe I'm just stupid, maybe I wasn't paying attention, I don't know, but those seem like they're very important questions. Are these the kinds of things that you look for, like having solid answers to those questions?
Absolutely, yes. And what you actually just as well like brought some good tips for those who are listening and thinking about applying for the residencies.
I love tips.
So that
Go ahead.
You open it up.
Yeah.
What I noticed as well, like some artists, they're doing a mistake. They just copy paste a reference from the art critic who has written about the artist and his research practice. So it sounds, when you start to read a proposal, it sounds like not the artist itself wants to arrive here, but that someone sends him, right? His curator or someone, right? Because when you read a proposal, you really want to start to feel the artist. You want to see his personality. And writing as a third person, like she or he, that kind of sort of artist will be, looking this direction, etc. It gets very confusing, and it is kind of in a way very formal, and kind of like I would say cold in a cold way,
Yes.
And so that's why I think
Matthew Doles's art practice involves
exactly.
It sounds very arrogant, almost even too.
Because you can found, later on when after we went over these first selection steps, right? Later on, still we getting into the data. We checking Google. We reading everything, what's important for us to know, or what is the interest, or if we need to double check if really artists had exhibition in Paris and Louvre.
Wow, so you actually like double check
absolutely some parts. If you see very high tips on it in a CV, for example, as well, or in a project that artists participate, or very well known art projects, you definitely want to check it up on it, if the information is correct.
Have you ever caught somebody in a lie?
I won't open it up because it's a private, but yes. And of course, we have to double check that there would not be spams. Let's don't forget it, because the application form is open, and very often there are false and spams, etc. Or someone just maybe sometimes wants to make a joke.
Yeah, they call it an art project to do a ridiculous application.
Exactly, like if I'm gonna get it through or not.
I know those
so
people.
So you got to double check. But yeah, definitely when applying and proposing, I think it's much more successful to get it through the proposals, through the applications. Is just write as you feel. Just show yourself, show your personality as an artist. Like, honestly, and you actually can feel it right away reading just the first couple of lines of it, if artist really is interested into the residency. Because there are as well a group of the artists, as I feel, that they just open all the open calls, probably what exists at this moment, they write the same reference from someone that they probably received, and they just go for copy paste, and then just I just gonna flow where I will be accepted, right?
All right, but I'm gonna push back on that a little bit, because as a person who does write those applications, that's very time consuming to do, for a hope and a prayer that I will be accepted into something.
But that's the role.
I know.
That's the cost of it,
I'm aware of it. But, because like if I sat down and I said, okay, I'm going to apply to like 10 residencies this year,
yes,
I would have to go in and research each of those 10 locations, those programs, their previous participants, like their objectives, their missions, like all this kind of stuff, as well as, like you said, like the community and like why me, why now, why here kind of thing, like, and then craft a unique written statement to explain exactly what that takes a lot of energy and time.
It is, and I feel sorry for the artists who really sending those applications, and we cannot accept all of them. But then there is, there is a competition, and that's increased as well the quality of the residency and participants in the residency as well. And I think you grow yourself as an artist. You maybe start to understand yourself better, right?
Absolutely.
And with the time, after 1 year applying for 10 residencies, then you get to know the tips, you get to know the feelings, then it is beneficial for yourself to try to apply for the residency project.
I've heard stories, I'm not going to say who, but I've heard stories that there are residencies. I'm not accusing you of residency of this, but there are residencies in the world that basically that you have to apply 2 or 3 times before they will even consider you for it, because they want to see the tenacity, they want to see the desire, they also want to see that you can take the rejection and then turn around and come back with a better proposal or a more elaborate or more specific or whatever changes need to be made. Do you do things like that?
Definitely not. We are not like flipping towards such
there's one particular one in Scandinavia that like I was literally told by the people, like, yes, you must apply for 3 years.
Well, I think I have here something this, but probably that is a residency who provides, and it's
a fully
grant.
funded.
So that's that is probably something. There are different points.
Yeah.
As I'm saying, all participating artists in our residency, they have to pay a fee. So we cannot start, to push artists away, and say, sorry, it's only your second time when you're applying for it, so try for a third time, and maybe you're gonna get the chance to pay the residency fee, right?
Right.
But if there are a residency that provides a lot for the artist and mentorship and a high quality of the residency in terms of guiding all the time and providing an assistance, probably they have a high numbers of applicants and a high interest. So it could be possible that you really need to work hardly to get into it. And let's don't forget that today the residencies play a very important role in an artist's CV as well. So some artists want to get in a residency only to increase the quality and the value in their artistic practice and to have this residency marked in the HCB that they have completed that residency or participated there.
I know. It's one of those, again, this like goes back to like, I wish somebody had told me this 20 years ago. Because I've been traveling and going and living in different parts of the world. Like I could have easily done residencies, but like it's one of those things, like it was never sort of explicitly explained that like residencies are beneficial for your career because of XYZ purposes. I mean, for me, I was always just like, well, residencies look great. It's the opportunity to like have time, space, and potentially money to like just, do a project. But like, I didn't need time, space, or money to do a project. So like I didn't apply. So but now it seems like it's incredibly important
Absolutely.
in an artistic career to have participated in residencies.
And in some certain residencies.
Well, yeah, there's obviously the higher echelons of residencies.
Crème de la crème, if you might say.
Indeed. But I mean, and of course they're hard to get, but you have to like start somewhere. So you have to get some residencies to then get to a better residency to then of course get to the ultimate residencies.
And and your knowledge grows as well after participating in a couple of the residency programs as well.
And your skill level at writing the applications.
Absolutely, and everything. And you start to understand it. But there are as well, because a lot of artists might get disappointed that they are not being accepted for the residency program. But as presenting an institution or the running residency program, there are so many side reasons why we might not be able to accept you, even though you received the highest scores, or even though your project proposal was incredibly great and interested us. But then we have you're smiling.
I'm sorry, I'm laughing and making faces at him because I believe that I know what he's trying to say, but he's trying to say it really politely.
It's just like, no, I'm not trying to, like, it's yes. So there are so many reasons why you might not get into the residency, even having the highest scores after the reviewing. It's not very often artists, they just think like, oh my god, I won't apply anymore in any residency because I didn't got accepted. It could be, and for example, we have a lot of collaborations and the partnerships with the other international artists associations. So that means that the number of the artists that we can accept that month is shrinked from 20 to only 8 or 9, And because we have to prioritize our exchange programs, right? So it depends as well on which month you are applying. Of course, Iceland summer, it's the most demanding period, but I think it's all around the world because it's a holiday time. If, for example, a lot of teachers, professors, they usually always apply during the holiday time, and everybody is on holidays at this time, right? So if you are applying artist, and if you see that you can plan your residency time, and you can be flexible with the dates, with the month, I'm always saying that autumn, winter, spring, it's much higher chance that you will be selected or successful with your art proposal, only because there are less interest or into the applicants.
Totally understandable. Makes sense.
Yes.
But the thing I was sort of making faces about, because I was waiting for you to say, like, because the different people might have high marks, but we have certain criteria such as race, gender, and like these kinds of things. Like, well, because some funded places have these kinds of criteria that they sort of have to give a certain amount of opportunities to ethnic, gender,
yes,
whatever background
right.
kind
That's
of thing.
Correct. For example, the one that I mentioned, we received a support from the Nordic residencies, support for the Nordic residencies, and the open call will be only for Scandinavian countries and the Baltic countries. And of course, Iceland is not in the list because the residency is happening here. So depends on what grants are it, or from which source the grants are coming up.
So it's available for every Scandinavian country except Iceland for a grant in Iceland.
Yes.
Or residency in Iceland.
Because that's one of the aims are to invite into Iceland.
Okay.
But of course, then we're using these budgets, and we're gonna have studio visits organized for the local artists. So that's gonna be the way for us to invite the local artists and the curators to participate in residency program.
Right, but I mean the gender, geography, whatever kind of criteria, it's common, especially when you're talking about like being funded. Like, this grant that has paid for this podcast, it included some things about like gender, quantity of people that I'm talking to, things like this. Like, so it wouldn't surprise me, and it's not to me in any way offensive or bad. It's just sometimes that's a criteria. So you're saying that you have no criteria for decision-making processes, which
Absolutely.
any sort of...
And we're receiving artists and applications from all around the world.
Okay, that's marvelous.
Absolutely.
I think it's great.
Just so everybody is welcome.
This grant that paid for this podcast, I had to interview 20 Icelandic creatives.
Oh, wow.
That was part of the grant, and I have to go to Norway
and you had to do it.
and do 20 Norwegian one as well. So like, but that was of my own doing. That was the application I wrote. So like, but it was my choice. But still, there are criteria that I have to meet.
Absolutely.
And a lot of times when we have outside funding, they have strings attached.
Oh yes, we got to go through it, all of us,
we all
and complete it.
Oh yeah, I know.
Absolutely.
All right, so let's wrap this up. Any sort of advice for, let's say, people wanting to apply or people wanting to participate, or even maybe somebody who wants to work at a residency? So anything that you can give sort of advice to help them out with their careers?
Wow. How to shrink now?
You don't have to shrink. You can take all of it. Go ahead.
There are not, I would not say that it's an advice. It's just, I would say just go for it. And I think that the residencies, especially through the last 10 years going backwards, it plays incredible role for each emerging, especially artist. And for those artists as well who might be stuck into the research field and they want to get a new inspiration. And we have seen a great changes in artists only staying for 1 month. They totally turn to other direction, and because he was able to meet someone who inspired him so badly from the good side that he even started to research absolutely different sources. So it is incredibly beneficial for the artists. Yes, there are costs, of course, on it, but like with everything else, right? And but I think it's incredibly helpful and needed for the artists to get inspired, to keep up with their work, and to keep up with a good, productive, and interesting art pieces. And you won't find a better place to build the new networks. It is only through the residencies.
Agreed. I look forward to submitting an application.
You're very welcome. And our open call will be very soon in July for the period January and June. So you have 1 month to prepare your art project proposal.
I will get working on that.
Thank you very much.
Before you go, we would like to thank you for listening all the way to the end of the episode. We would also appreciate it if you would share this podcast with your friends, family, co-workers, or studio mates, anyone with an interest in the arts and creative industries. The building and strengthening of the arts and creative community, both today and in the future, is at the core of our mission for this podcast. They can listen and subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or wherever you get your podcasts. We are produced by 5014, the audio was edited by CushAudio Services, and the music was created by Pete Bybee. The Wise Fool Art Podcast is supported in part by an EEA grant from Iceland, Liechtenstein, and Norway in an effort to work together for a green, competitive, and inclusive Europe. We would also like to thank our partners Hunt Kastner in Prague, Czech Republic, and Kunstsentrene i Norge in Norway. Links to EEA grants and our partner organizations are available in the show notes or on our website, wisefoolpod.com.